And so Tyshawn Castillo was an 11th grade student who joined our community as a 9th grader after moving to the States from Belize. Like all of our students, Tyshawn was an amazing human being in his own unique way. I have fond memories of interacting with him over the course of a regular school day. His warmth, his playfulness, his innocence have been on my mind a lot as I'm late. So I wanted to take a moment this evening before kicking off the meeting to honor Tyshawn and acknowledge what a privilege it's been to have him as a member of our school community. So please join me in a moment of silence in honor of Tyshawn. All right, thank you. So I want to transition hard to our mission moment for tonight. So one of the events that we had take place 2 weeks ago at our school was our spring Unity Prep Showcase, where our kids at the middle school were able to showcase some of the things that they've learned and are proud of over the course of the school year. So we're going to watch the first 2.5 minutes of one of our 8th grade students showing off something that he's learned. And I'm struck by just the carefree nature of his presentation and the sort of real joy with what he's discovered in his earth science class. So let's watch that clip together. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear once I get this going. Here we go.
Hey everyone, my name is Nathan Ramjay. I'm an 8th grader from 802, and I'll be talking about some of my favorite minerals today. Minerals here that I'm going to talk about, and the first one is called Biotite Mica. This one here, I like it a lot because it's a very glassy texture, as you can see. Nice and shiny, that's why we call it glassy, right? See, look at that. Very nice. See that? Alright, the next one is an interesting one. Right, it's called Sulfur. Some of you probably going to know it. It's the rock that stinks, right? You know, you scratch it a little bit. I have a little tool here that'll help me with that, right? Scratch a little bit here. Oh, it stinks. It smells like rotten eggs, right? There's smell-o-vision where things that have smelled bad. Now, number 19 here. See that? It's gold, right? They gave us gold. And it's crazy, right? Just kidding. It's actually called pyrite. It's what's known as fool's gold. And people, like, when you find this, if you're just mining or something, going out, find this, probably pyrite, not gold. You're not that lucky. Now, this is quick, but the last one, Magnetite, it's my favorite one. Reason being, because see, it's not too special. You know, it's a little shiny here and there. Alright, look at that little shiny. But the reason it's my favorite, right? See this? This right here is a little magnet, right? You send a little metal pole, put it right there. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? It's magnetic. Oh, that's my computer. Look at this. It's magnetic. See, you can stick onto the magnet. See? Oh, that's not good. No, see, look at this. A magnetic rock. You ever thought about that? Now, I want to go back and talk about sulfur a little bit more. It's really interesting. The fact that a rock can smell that bad. It's crazy, right? So, that's pretty much all. I just want to talk about that real quick. You know, interesting rocks, you know. Pretty interesting, right? It doesn't have to be all boring. Oh, not rocks, minerals. I'm sorry. Minerals. They're all minerals. Magnetite, pyrite is a mineral, not a rock. Biotite mica, a mineral, not a rock. These are minerals. Glassy one, nice and shiny, see that? And sulfur, the eggs, you know, they're all minerals, not rocks. I just want to talk about that.
Why are we constructing?
So there's 40 more minutes of clips if you'd like to watch them. It's in our scoop, which is on our website. But what strikes me there is just like he's blown away by the fact that a mineral or a rock, as he says, can smell, or that it's magnetic, and that's just cool that he's got that wonder, that curiosity as an 8th grader in science. And so I bring this to you because it's fun and inspiring. It also, I think, as a school, shows that a few years ago we didn't offer this course to kids. This is an 8th grade course. We have one section, about 20 students or so that take this course. They've opted in it's a course that kids also take in the 10th grade, and it's a Regents ending course. And so I say all that because we've done some good work over the past few years in expanding our course offerings to align to our kids' talents, needs, etc., at different moments in time, including the 8th grade. And so I think that bodes well for kids getting the most as they can out of school, being appropriately challenged, having their intellectual pursuits honored. And that aligns with just our mission of empowering all of our kids. So that's the mission moment for today.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Have a school report?
Sure thing. I'm seeing if I get it up here. And I'll share my screen again if I do. All right.
Hey, by the way, Josh, I went to the site to see that video you showed.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Okay.
It sends me to an email.
Okay. Excellent. We'll fix that. I think I knew that actually. That was fine.
Note to the IT people. Yeah. Okay.
We'll send it out in any case. And so let's see here. Share screen. So a couple of updates that I want to provide regarding the school leader report that was sent out to you yesterday morning. 3 notes specifically. I'll go deep with one, and then the other 2 are rather quick. So I think just the first, in looking at kind of headlines for the month of April, busy month this time of year. I just add, in addition to like these many events going on in the year, item K would just be that we also celebrated Teacher Appreciation Week and Principal Appreciation Day. Go figure, Principal Appreciation Day was actually on a Saturday, so there wasn't much of a celebration, but the celebration over the course of the week for teachers was festive. So we had a number of events, including some meals via Seamless because we're remote, some virtual cards being sent out. We had some video coming from parents and students, which were really precious to their teachers. And then some first edition Unity backpacks went out to team. So festive week there. I think people felt appreciated, which is much, it's very important given the talent we need to do the work we do. So that's one. The second update is going back to our miscellaneous updates. I just want to note this because I think it's a big deal. So some key hires were made this past month too. Specifically 3 positions I want to note. The first is that we did hire a high school co-principal of teaching and learning. If you recall, we have an intern person in that role. I'm going to talk about that person a bit later on tonight. But we've identified and have hired someone who's been in this game for close to 20 years. She now is at a charter school very close to our middle school and has been working in charters for the past 15 years here in New York. She's originally from Chicago. Really promising future leaders. So excited to have her on board. And she's onboarding actively now. We meet with her on Fridays. In addition to that hire, I mentioned, I think during my last, during our last meeting, that Michelle Roy Gaines, who's been with us since we started, is going to be moving back to Ohio to be with her family this coming year. And so she's been there working remotely and has decided that they're going to move back and stay there. So we're happy for her and her family. She will not be so far away remotely. She's going to be working with us in some capacity. But with that comes a rather big void. And we have our assistant principal of ELA at the middle school, who's been with us 5 years and has done a fairly solid job with our literacy program and our reading program at the school, chipping in and stepping into that position in the coming year. And so also excited by that, that transition. Her onboarding has also begun, and that was actually going on earlier today. So 2 key hires in teaching and learning moving forward for the school. And then thirdly, with the void and having Andrea move from the chairperson position in ELA to the co-principal position at the middle school, there was a vacancy. And so we've hired on a person who's been in the charter game here in New York for 10 years now, is originally from California, has been a school leader at a middle school at a high achieving school in the Bronx, and is moving to Brooklyn. And so excited to have her. I spoke with her today as a part of her onboarding process, as we also onboard the co-principal of teaching and learning at the middle school. So I'm feeling good about these sort of key new people on team and what it means for our school, and then the way in which we're doing it now, even before the school year begins. So that's big news. And that's been quite a bit of work over the past couple of months. So I'm happy to see it sort of unfold in the way that it has. Again, it means good things for school and kids. Questions there? Cool. So I'll move us forward. I think that the sort of one of the main events of the School Leader Report is some of the work that I reported out as spring priorities during the last board meeting that I've then been discussing with the SLC during our weekly or monthly calls before the board meeting. So I want to note a couple of updates with regard to spring priorities, where you'll see a table in front of you on the screen. You also have it in the School Leader Report. But if you recall, last month, I had outlined 8 priorities that I thought reflected us ending the year successfully, given where we were as of March. And so they range from grades and credit accrual to state testing, to kind of hiring and employment stuff, to student enrollment, to then planning for the summer, graduation, and planning for the fall. And then what I also included was just like some metrics or outcome measures that I thought would indicate for us that we are ending the school year on a successful note across these different priorities. So with regard to updates there are 3 I want to provide. I'll start with the green. I'll then move on to red, and then mention a few updates in yellow. So just in green, I think some things that are going strongly right now. One is just 6th grade enrollment matriculation for next year. That's been a focus for us for the year, and it's been kind of a barrier for us in terms of sort of ensure that we've got full enrollment as kids enter our school. So right now, the latest data is that we've got 103 students that have submitted birth certificates, which is an indicator for us that like things are real with regard to kids entering our school. And that is for 94 seats. So we don't expect for all of those students to ultimately end up at our school, but right now the numbers seem good. Chris, where were we last year at this time? I know you reported that out even during yesterday's call. Do you remember that number?
I think it was around high 60s.
So high 60s last year at this time versus 103 matriculations in process in the 6th grade as of now. So that's good news. We're cautiously optimistic and continuing to go hard on outreach and communication and encouragement to families to apply and enroll.
Josh, how does that relate to the numbers in table number 7 in the dashboard? We've got the number of open seats, and that has applications enrolled and then new students enrolled. Is this just a more recent number, and it's the 93 has gone up to 110?
Well, the number was at 110 and then 93 to 96 or some order like that. So it relates to the snapshot in time that we're looking at. Yes, okay. There are 3 different snapshots actually that are here. There's the one from the SLC call, and then the numbers as of yesterday, and then the numbers that Chris inputted on Friday.
Cool.
So in addition to that, the other green area for us is around graduation. It is a challenging year with regard to like just coaching kids, preparing kids for the finish line with graduation, and then supporting them in their application and enrollment to college. And so right now, we're aiming for 90% of our kids to earn their diplomas by 8/31. And speaking with our director of academic counseling last week, she sees the number north of 90% at this point in time by June. Of course, there's some work to do between now and graduation to make that happen. Last year, we made that happen. And so right now we feel fairly good about meeting that mark and supporting those students that are on the cusp with regard to earning the credits they need to graduate in June. So that feels good. And then with regard to kids being accepted and then enrolling in college at this point in time, the numbers are as follows. We're actually at 88%, no wait. 88% of kids in the class of 2021 now applying to college. And there's plans to sort of move those additional 12% to vocational programs. And so that's going on now. So that feels good. And then in addition to that, we've got close to 78% of our students who have been accepted to a 2 or 4 year college right now. And we're waiting for a couple of schools to provide updated information, including CUNYs. So that feels good, and it's in the green. Any questions there? Cool. So I'm going to move on to what's in pink here. And I think this is just where we've been kind of spending most of our time, attention, and resources. And that's in just ensuring that all of our kids are earning sufficient grades to then move on to the next grade level. And so they're earning credits at the high school, they're earning passing grades at the middle school. The goal is 70% plus. We knew coming into this year that we probably would have to provide for more students to attend summer academy. So they're getting more time over the year to be prepared to move on to the next grade. Presently, we're like in the low 60s with regard to that measure. So we're behind where we'd like to be. And so, that's the work right now. It's engaging kids on the daily and engaging them in coursework and then supporting them and demonstrating that like what they're learning sets them up for the coming year. So I think with that, we've got a couple of actions, 3 specifically. One is just new outreach to families for those kids that are showing some struggle, for that 30% or so. We've got remastery days on Friday. They're designated days for supporting kids who need the most sort of support. And so doubling down on that on Fridays at the middle school. And then we have interventions also taking place at the high school on Fridays, like targeted interventions where teachers are there working with small groups of students. And so also doubling down there. Secondly, I think we're just kind of planning for having perhaps more students attend summer academy at both sites. And so those are the actions at this point in time. And we hope they're sufficient to get us to this 70% value. Are there questions there? Cool. So I'm going to move on. I think there's just one in yellow. These are things that are kind of in process, not like powerfully like I'm excited by these items in terms of where we are right now, and not that I'm concerned about them. They're just things that we're working on now, or perhaps I don't have enough data on. And so just moving to item 2, priority 2, with like state testing and advanced placement testing and STAR testing, a couple of updates. We had about 7% of our students opt into testing, both in ELA and math over the past 2 weeks at the middle school. That was the number we expected based on the survey we sent out last month. And so small number. Many of those students were kids who were on par and above grade level in some cases. So we expect what they demonstrate to be sort of above average with regard to our full cohorts per grade. With AP testing right now, based on the mocks, we made some gains last year from our first year of AP exams to the second. And I think based on the mocks, we're expecting the results not to be as good as last year. So something in between what we had our first year and second year. I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One being there are just fewer minutes of instructional time over the course of the year. And so keeping up with the pacing of what is required in the AP course has been challenging for folks. In addition to that, the targets change somewhat in that we've had 3 different exams that have been administered by AP over the past 3 years. And so obviously 2 years ago was a full exam. There was no pandemic. Last year, they really pulled things back and it was a shortened exam. A fraction of the short answer essays, a fraction of the multiple choice. And so that's the way they'd set it up given the time they had. This year, it's going to be even more rigorous. So it's closer to an actual exam, but it's going to be virtual. And so I think with that, there's more challenge and there's more material to cover. So I think that results in lower scores for kids who then sit and take them. The third piece is more technical in nature. There's like a lockdown browser that every student needs to then take the AP exam with College Board. A vast majority of our kids have come in and had that lockdown browser installed. But we've got a critical mass of students who have not, and so they're in jeopardy of not being able to sort of sit for the exam. And then if College Board puts forward a mock exam, they're unable to sit for it. So there's some limitations there for those kids in getting kind of that bats in practice. And so that's been a challenge. So that is sort of a summary of where we are with AP as we move into kids taking the exams over the next 2 weeks. Then finally with STAR, the third administration for STAR is happening later this month too. So kind of a big testing month for our high school. At our middle school, they will take STAR as well. And then they're also preparing for our version of roundtables this year, which is kind of scaled back and is more of a reflection piece than a full roundtable. And so that's also virtual, obviously. So that's what's going on with assessments as we close out the year. Are there any questions there? All right, well, that's the summary for the school year report.
Okay, great. Should we move to the dashboard?
Yeah, let's do that. Let me open that up. All right, I believe there may only be 2 updates here, 3 updates here that I'll provide that are even different from when this was completed over the weekend and on Friday. So I think just first, we tend to sort of focus on enrollment because it's a big indicator of things. And so right now there was no change on net from last month to this month. And so that's what's reflected in the table, and that's table 1. And they're going to move us forward, fast forward us all the way to table 9, and feel free to pause if there are other values you want to focus on or other tables you want to focus on. Recall that the tables with a green header are the ones that were updated from last month to this month. But I just want to focus on staff recruitment, which was updated. Let me make this a bit bigger. And so staff recruitment, here's where things stand. And so with regard to leadership positions at the school, I had mentioned that we'd made some key hires this past month, so I feel good about that. There's a good chance right now that we may have one of our leaders at the high school, a chairperson of ELA, moving out of state. And so if that happens, there's a vacancy there. So we are kind of taking part in the interview process in the event that that happens. And so that's the one vacancy at either site that is now a leadership position. With regard to teachers, there are 4 openings right now at the middle school and 1 at the high school. At the high school, it's a science teacher, and we actually have someone who we're interested in as soon as we confirm that the one question mark at the high school is either returning or not. And so we're standing by there, and we'll make a decision on that in the coming week. And then with middle school, we've got 3 ELA teacher vacancies, all due to people moving out of state, 1 to Atlanta, 1 to Rochester, and 1 to the West Coast. And so that's a big deal. So right now, in covering those positions and hiring good folks to fill the shoes of those who are departing, there are a couple of things we're doing. The first is we got 2 candidates in the mix right now that we're actively interviewing. So that's good. With the new hires that we're bringing on, there's some nudging. Typically when one moves from one school to the next, there's sort of a network that person has that our current school does not. And so we've had luck and been fortunate to have people bring others along in those cases. And so that's something we're also looking to do here. There's a referral bonus at our school for hires, and we've done that for the past few years, but that's also live here. And then finally, for the ELA position in particular, we're going to convene a task force, which will be led by very likely our incoming middle school co-principal, who was our ELA AP. And that team will convene at least weekly right now. We're just kind of putting things together, but it will comprise of myself, our current CPTL at the middle school, our incoming CPTL, the department chair of ELA, and very likely 2 ELA teachers. So the idea is to just focus on getting more applications in, because I think right now the barrier is that we're not getting enough applications to then sort of be able to pick and choose the best folks who we think are available for our school. So that's the work. Are there questions there? Cool. So I think the final update for the dashboard is table 14, which relates to SPED compliance. And so if you'll recall, in the fall, I provided an update on at both sites, the percentage of students with IEPs who had IEPs that were up to date, the percentage where the IEP was being fully met, everything on the IEP was being served to that student, and then cases where the IEP was partially met. And in those cases, it's typically a transition year where maybe we offer a partial service, maybe the number of minutes of an ICT class doesn't match what they had in elementary school or in 8th grade if they're transitioning to 9th grade. And so there's typically some consultation with the CSE to then make updates to those, but it requires a meeting in order to do so. And so in looking at the spring, I think things are in fairly good form. We've got a good kind of like monitoring of like what needs to happen to get exactly where we want to be. At the middle school, things are fine. At the high school, things are also fine, but we've got a slightly higher percentage of IEPs that are out of date. I think the note they're coming from our compliance person at the high school is just that, you know, there are 12 of 57 that are overdue. There are 4 meetings that were held on 3/9, but they haven't been finalized by the CSE. And then there are 4 meetings that are scheduled 5/4, but were canceled. The update today from that person was that that value of 79 is now 82, as 2 of the IEPs are now up to date. And so there's movement, I guess, is what that reflects. And so I'm not concerned about these values at all. I think they're actually quite good. And so that's where things are as we begin to kind of close out the year with SPED compliance. Are there questions there? Cool. All right, that's the update in the dashboard, unless people have questions on any of the other tables. All right.
Okay. Should we move on to strategic planning?
Yeah, let's do that. And I'm going to share my screen once again. And I'm going to report out on some discussion that took place with the SLC this past Wednesday with regard to some restructuring, personnel-wise, that I think is going to benefit our school in a significant way. So let me do that. Okay, so you're looking at the slides from last week's SLC meeting. And what I want to do is I want to provide you a couple of org charts at the senior level of our school, both the present configuration of things, what I'd like to do in moving forward, so some of the changes or one change I'd like to make. I'll provide the rationale why for that, and then talk about what that means with regard to roles and responsibilities and what I think that means for outcomes. So what you see in front of you now is our current senior kind of level org structure at the school, where we have a board of trustees, we have a head of school. Beneath the head of school are 2 co-principals of teaching and learning, one at the middle school and high school, 2 co-principals of culture and operations, both again at each site, a director of admin, that's Chris, and then a data sort of analyst. And then beneath those folks, we've got our teachers, our coaches, our chairs, our deans, our ops team, special services, recruitment team, et cetera. And so that's generally the summary of the org chart as of 2021. Are there any questions there? So I think, you know, look, this is worked for us this year. And I think at this point in time, we're at a bit of a crossroads where we could continue with this present configuration and continue to see gradual increases in growth and achievement at the school. It would take some time to continue to do that, but I see that as a positive trajectory. At the same time, I'd like to ramp this up a little bit, and I'd like to see some further acceleration with regard to kind of yearly academic progress, and doing that while also continuing to cultivate initiatives that also drive outcomes at the school and provide additional opportunities for students. Right now, it's kind of a stretch to do that. There's a lot of responsibilities at some of these lead roles, including mine. So I think with that, given that interest in that opportunity, I come to the second model, which is the proposed model for 2021-22, in which you've got the same board, that's you all, got the head of school, you've got now the new position here, a chief academic officer role at the school. That person then working underneath them and reporting to them are co-principals of teaching and learning at both sites, the data analyst that I mentioned earlier. And then in addition to that, a very similar configuration beyond teaching and learning with our Cpcos and director of administration. So here, the benefit of this, I feel, is it I think equips us to more significantly accelerate yearly academic progress at the school, and that's from grades 6 through 12. We've just come out of like a pretty serious growth phase as a school over the past 7 years, and this is the first year in which we haven't grown at all. And so as we think about what our graduates have experienced over the past 7 years, have that trajectory, and then think of what kids who followed them have experienced, we see some opportunity to get better at this. And so the CAO role would be positioned to see that through. And so their sole responsibility would be driving outcomes grades 6, 12, with alignment to college and career readiness post-graduation. I want to talk a bit more about what that means with regard to roles and responsibilities. But before I do, are there questions or ideas that this brings about for you all?
I guess, how does the CPCO relate to the CAO? How do they work together?
Well, we have senior school leadership meetings every Tuesday. And so there's a convening of that group. That would be the head of school, the CA, currently it'd be the CPTLs, the CPCOs, the director of admin, and myself. And so we get together and there's interaction, about 2 hours of kind of heavy planning, strategic planning, decision-making, et cetera, that goes on. And that's the main way in which they now collaborate. With this, that group would still continue. We'd add one more team member to the SSLT with the creation of this CAO. And I should say just right now, Jim, the CAO, the person coming in this role, Melissa, has been serving as our interim co-principal of teaching and learning at the high school. So she's been responsible when she came on 2 years ago from another network, creating our AP program. She was also our history chair, and she did a lot of close work with our principal then, Chelsea Fuller. So she's then stepped in this position. Prior to us, she was at another high school. And then prior to that, her background is in ELA at the middle school. So she's got unique expertise to sort of see a middle school, high school, see its academic program grow and prosper. So that's more than you asked for. But I see the work of these two folks being one in which when there are school decisions going down that impact academics, where players at hand are culture and operation leaders, like that's when there'd be connection, correspondence, debate, decision-making, et cetera.
So what does the CPCO do? Like, what's the day-to-day?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Operations of school on the daily. So they're like the front office, right? And so they lead, supervise that office. And then with regard to culture and kind of like conduct and climate of the school, they're also responsible for making sure that that's positive, safe, conducive to learning, et cetera.
Okay. Got it.
So wouldn't the CAO, the CPCO report to the CAO, or I see that you have them, but it seems like the CAO is taking on a vast more responsibility than the CPCO.
In that way, you nailed it. I've been wrestling with this too. It's an elevated position. So it's a big responsibility. Like you're leading the academic program of a middle school, high school, 612. So it's a pretty complex position at the school. There is a time, it's possible. There could be a time in which there was perhaps, I don't think we do that at our size now, but it'd be worth kind of like contemplating a year from now. in which we have perhaps a chief operations officer that has a similar sort of set of responsibilities as the CAO. It's just mirrored onto culture and operations at the school, and then that person would report to me. I think we're still small enough where that might not be the best use of resources. But if there was growth of some kind at the school, that'd be worthy of consideration, I think.
I guess, you know, for me, it's easy to understand stripping out the operations aspect from educating, right? I get that. I don't understand why the culture is with the operations and the culture isn't with the teaching. You know,
that's a really good question too. I think that's something with this sort of model, which is not totally uncommon. That's where there can be missteps, is like making sure that like the teaching and learning component of the school and the culture aspect of the school are in line and in collaboration. And there have been times, admittedly, when that hasn't happened. A couple of years ago at the high school, I think that was the case. And we talked about that a bit within this team. We've made a couple of changes so that there's more harmony with those different groups and leaders. And some of that's just face time. It's like training time together and looking at like teaching and learning, and then like how you make it really buzz with regard to the vibe in classrooms. And that's the kind of culture and climate in classrooms. And so whether it's the training going on where it's much more in lockstep than it had been in the past, or even just FaceTime. Like we've got school leadership team, like we have teams at the school site called SLTs, not SSLTs, that comprise of members of the culture team, our operations manager, our instructional coaches, and our principals. And so that time has been a value add with regard to making sure that like, just what you've said, like there isn't like missteps or missed opportunities with regard to culture leaders not completely in line with instructional coaches and vice versa. But that's the most complex part of this.
okay.
So I think what makes sense is to dig in this a bit more deeply. And I guess for members of the SLC, we didn't talk about this on Wednesday. It's been a bit of a facelift since when we spoke. But what you see in front of you now are just the roles, as I see them now, of the CAO, like their responsibilities. And so as you look down, I'll give you 30 seconds to do that now. You'll see it's very focused on the academic program of our school. As you're reading over that, feel free to throw out any questions. I realize there's some abbreviations and things there that may not be clear. Any questions? All right. What I want to do is I want to juxtapose that with what my roles and responsibilities are at this point in time as of this year. And so you can take 30 seconds to look at that. And actually, it's not entirely valid in that I made an update here to reflect the change. But that's really the only update I made. So what intrigues me here is what I've done is I've highlighted in yellow those key responsibilities that I feel like we're now as an institution with this new move able to go much deeper on than what has been the case over the past several years, with like this being what's on my plate. And so being able to sort of hold things down or do a good enough job or make gradual progress with regard to academic outcomes, but not really being able to drive them in the way that I think could be possible if we had more firepower on the academic component of our team. So what's in yellow, I think, really translates to the CAO's responsibilities that we just saw in the prior slide, and just being able to go much deeper and focused and granular with those responsibilities that do most directly drive academic outcomes in the near term. One way that I sort of see this, which I think is helpful, is I see the CAO position being one in which that person is sort of flying the academic plane, the sort of like the yearly, daily, monthly work of like academic drive. And then the role that I've been sort of like wearing two hats for is both the building and flying. I feel like with this configuration, there's more building I'm able to do of the academic plane than what I was doing before, because I was managing them both simultaneously and doing an okay job, but not a stellar job with either of them because of being stretched. So I think this again leads to like some acceleration with regard to like the flying of the academic plane, and then also allows for us to think strategically about some of the things we might do to cultivate that flying with additional building. And so that's the theory of action.
Apologies if I missed it, Josh, but like, how did you come to the conclusion that this was the right structure? And did you look at how other schools do it, or was it sort of driven by the personalities you have around, or by some holistic view of how the organization should run? Like how?
All of the above. I'll tell you though, I mean, this originally, if we had talked a year and a half ago about this, I wouldn't have wanted to do this. And actually, it was an idea that I think came up through conversations that we had about a year and a half ago, where the school would benefit from additional firepower on the academic front. And so this is a representation of that. And one of the ideas that was tossed around. I think we're bigger now than we were a few years ago too. And so there's just, it's just, this makes sense more now than it would have been true before we were completely built out, or before we were only just a middle school. So I think the third piece here is just, again, looking at what our first and now second cohort have experienced, and seeing some power and impact from more tightly aligning our academic programs 6 through 12, where like we've really been operating as two schools academically over the past few years as we've grown and built. We got a middle school that's a few years ahead of a high school, and then a high school that just kind of like grew up on its own and just finished that out, and now is a really ideal opportunity to sort of make sure that they're in line. And so thinking about the kid experience, I think this allows for a student to more seamlessly and in a more customized way, with, again, the young goal being fully college and career ready, to experience that from day one at our school moving forward.
And you feel comfortable with how your overall reporting structure is going to work, and the number of direct reports you have, and how you're going to manage that, and the fact that some people who used to be reporting to you are no longer going to be reporting to you, you're all good with all the implications of that.
I think that's why I would have not been okay with it a year and a half ago. I think, and some of the feedback that Jim had, I think when we first began looking at this some time ago, was like, you got too many people here trying to sort of effectively manage, and you're probably not effectively managing them as a result. And so I think this would be a decrease. And so, yeah, letting go of some of that academic work that I really enjoy, at least directly with a school leader, is just, I think, beneficial. I still will have hands in on this in working directly with Melissa, and I'm excited by that, who would then be directly working with our co-principals. And then the other piece that you bring out, which I didn't mention, but aligns with your thinking here, is that with 2 new co-principals coming in this year, that's both a good opportunity to do something like this, and I think we take this a bit more slowly as well. And so, especially at the high school, where our co-principal's coming in from another school, like it takes a year to like just earn the trust of your team, right, with that kind of work. And so I want to do this over 2 years where Melissa is more heavily situated at the high school and onboarding Martine when she comes on, and having that be something that might take place over the first semester, but we'll allow for it to take place over the full year if possible. And then I'll have a heavier hand in supporting and managing Andrea at the middle school in this new role where she's pivoting from one position to another. It isn't as sort of new for her because she's been with the school 5 years and is very well regarded by our team. So it'll be a slower transition that way. And I feel like that's also good for school and good for team.
Okay, thank you.
Good questions. Any other final thoughts before we move things forward? Okay.
Okay, thanks. Let's move on to the AFC. Do we have?
Yeah, Leslie is in.
Can I ask one
Oh,
question?
hey, Leslie.
Hey, how is everyone?
Doing okay, Leslie.
Go ahead.
Thanks for joining in, but I think
Go ahead, Jake. You got a question?
One more question.
So I missed one last thing. Josh, forgive me if I missed in there, but have you decided who you have in mind for the CAO, or you've got the structure and then you're going to find the person?
So yeah, we do. That person is someone who built our AP program at the high school, has been with us 3 years, was an AP, was our chairperson of history for 2 years, is our interim co-principal of teaching and learning now. And then prior to that, she was at a well-regarded high school within a larger network here in Brooklyn as like a director or dean of support services. So she has like that ability and that expertise too. And then finally, her initial expertise was in kind of like the teaching of ELA at the middle school. And so she did that for a number of years before then moving into leadership positions at other schools. So she's uniquely qualified in that way.
And what's her name?
Melissa Duffney.
Melissa Duffney. Oh, sorry. Okay, you said that. Okay, thanks.
Yep. What's also good is you'll get to hear from her a bit more next year, as opposed to always having to listen to me report out things. So I think that's helpful too in having her perspective. She's super smart, really good. I'm excited for all this.
Okay, great. Leslie.
Yes.
Jump in?
Yep. So the AFC, do you want me to share my screen and go over it really quickly, or are you just fine with me just speaking out?
Mario, what do you think's best?
Okay.
I've got it open in front of me for what it's worth. So.
Yeah, maybe you can put the one pager, but I don't think it's.
Okay, then I don't have to, because I'm sure you guys saw it on Friday, right? So in regards for the reporting as of March 2021, we're expected to come in on a net income basis at $218,861,000, which is a change of $25,109 higher than budget. With that being said, in regards to revenues were projected to be $180,295 higher than budget. That's pretty much made up of the grants that we received, either for the CSP COVID-19 grant, the ESSER CARES grant, and we also have some increase in IDEA funding. Our title grants were slightly higher by $932, but that is pretty much being offset by the per pupil expense, which is lower by about $78,913. So where we're partially lower on the gen ed expenses by about 6 students, we're partially making up for that in the SPED expenses, but not enough to cover the total shortfall of the 6 students overall. Any questions on revenue? Okay, in regards to expenses are projected to be higher than budget by $155,186. A majority of this is made up of the expenses that are partially being offset by the increases that we receive from the 2 grants, whether it's the CSP COVID grant or the ESSER CARES grant. And that's coming in line in some of the areas where maybe some classroom curriculum, in buying like hotspots and things for students, and also some of the additional funding for stipends and headcount coverage for some of the staff. We also have included here a full 12 months of the PPP loan interest that we've been updating like month over month, but for this particular time, we're just trying to cover the whole 12 months. So that's how we get to the net income that is roughly higher by $109,000.
I'm showing the summary now on the screen in case folks want to see it.
Oh, okay. So moving on to cash flow. Cash on hand as of March 31st is about $3.9 million. That's excluding the escrow balance. Without the PPP CARES loan, it's $2.3 million. It represents 116 days of cash on hand, which is a good position to be in, as I say every month, because it's over the 90-day range. But without the PPP CARES loan, it will be about 70 days of cash on hand. And I also want to mention that this does not include the last influx of funds that we would see from the PPP, not PPP, from the per pupil, which has been deposited into the account as of April 1. Cash to be carried over into full year 2022 is $1.4 million without the PPP CARES loan, and 2.9 or roughly $3 million with that loan not forgiven. Cash on hand for FNOB is about $1.3 million. Any questions? One of the other things that I want to mention, and I'm not sure if that was discussed before I jumped on the call, is that our Form 990 is due, and we have to e-file it by May 17th, which is Monday. But I would hope to, have it e-filed and sent to the auditors before that. So I don't know if it was voted on or.
It will be shortly.
Okay. And that is my report for this month.
Any questions from the team? Leslie, always a pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Just let me know about the 990.
Chris will let you know it'll be approved tonight, and you'll get confirmation from him tonight or tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Right.
Back to you, Jim.
DFC, please.
I think the update there is maybe twofold.
Josh, you're coming through a little faint.
Oh, sorry. Is this better?
Yeah, much better. Thanks.
So maybe two updates here, just for FYIs for the team. Just there's a call this week with our landlord about possible paths for a potential expansion, and so that'll be this week. And then I think also happening somewhat separately, but at the same time, it's just communication about acquiring for the short term a building next to our property, also owned by our landlord, and having that in anticipation of needing additional space with social distancing requirements. And so specifically right now, we're just working with both the landlord and our architect in ensuring that we have the ability to use that space for an academic purpose. And so that's the latest. I don't know, Jake or Jim or Sal, anything else you'd add?
Just to clarify, the next door, at least in the near term, is just for a short-term lease for the rest of the board. It's not acquiring to own.
Cool.
And I guess, Josh, just in anticipation of our call tomorrow, I want to make sure we had this DFC call a while ago where I think we said, okay, our priority is first sort of slight flexibility in terms of more space for next year, which is the small building next door.
My thought, Jake, was maybe to cover this during the executive session.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, great. ECPC.
I think the only update there is we're looking to get some murals on the building out front, and we've been kind of like planning forward with that. And so we've got a group that's going to do it. We want to get some kids involved, but the hope is that we've got some beautiful public art in front of our building this summer. So that's been the main focus of conversation.
Great.
Did we want to talk about the benefits as part of AFC, or we're doing that at another point? Or what?
Your call, Miranda. I had it on my list, but I didn't know if we wanted to bring it up in this meeting or perhaps wait until next. I'm happy to do either.
I think it has to be this one.
Okay.
Because I think you need to sign it up to have open enrollment and everything. I think next month is going to be too late. I mean, if Chris is on, he can confirm or tell me I'm wrong, but I think it has to be considered today.
Yeah, no, it's got to be today. Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. What is this for? This is for what component?
The medical.
Employee
Oh,
benefits.
that's on the agenda as an approval measure. I thought you were referring. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were referring to like the 403B stuff that we discussed.
No, sorry. No, the existing plans. So yeah, we can talk about that whenever you have it on the agenda.
Yeah. We're almost there. And then I think with SLC, just the next committee report out, I think we've covered most of our bases in this meeting today, either when discussing the school report, the dashboard, or the strategic planning component of the meeting. So Jake, Jim, Madonna, let me know if you feel otherwise. If there's anything else to discuss.
Yep. Okay, move on.
Yep.
Associate board?
Not present tonight. Although I'll just say they've been helpful in doing some setup for small fundraising campaigns on our website. And so that's been what they've been focusing on behind the scenes.
Okay, let's move on to the approval items. Now, Josh, I don't see anything in here for the
insurance. Yeah, we're going to add that in. Why don't we do that at the end? We'll go with minutes, then 990, and then the insurance.
Okay. Okay, I'll let you steer that one. Okay, so first item up for approval are the minutes from the prior meeting. Does anybody have any questions on the minutes or move forward? Okay, all in favor? Thank you.
Josh, I think you still have the screen share up, by the way.
What's that?
You might want to just end the screen share.
Oh, thank you.
And then the next item is the Form 990, which was, I believe, reviewed by S&C again. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I mean, we had comments that were reflected. So we're
Okay. Okay, great. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, Josh, you want to talk about or Mario, who's the right person to talk about the
Chris and Mario are the experts here.
the benefits. Yeah, I can lead an intro, and then Chris can discuss the details. So we're talking about the main budget item is the medical plan, the medical insurance, and that one. But yeah, my expectation was that we would do reasonably well in this cycle because the utilization of medical benefits in the past year has been low because people haven't been going to the doctor. So insurers have done well. Matt explained to us that because we have less than 100 employees enrolled, we don't get to look at our own utilization rate in determining our claims experience, if you will, for purposes of calculating the premium. So we're benchmarked against who knows what, and we just don't get to argue our case based on how much they may or may not have saved on our account in the past year. They initially, the insurer initially came back with a 6% or so increase, which I was not happy with. On the basis of kind of medical inflation and stuff. And so we talked to Matt, and his recommendation was that we go to the carrier and say, we're not going to bid this if you give us a rate pass, meaning a 0% increase, stable rates for next year. And he was, the other option being going to the market and trying to see what competing insurers would do, which would have taken more time and which may or may not have worked because Matt's experience was that, it's rare to obtain a decrease. We did obtain a decrease when we went from small group to a large group, but that's a one-off. So he went back to them, and it took him longer than he expected, but he came back with the rate pass that I think we can all live with. So the bottom line is on the medical plan, which is 80 or 85% of the money we spend on these things, the rates are going to be constant from last year, which is always good in the world of medical things, given inflation and other trends. The other ones, again, Chris, can give more detail, and there was a lot of good information in the deck that went around that Matt prepared. I think there's a life and disability that are also staying flat, and then the vision is going down by, I think, 5%. So overall, the cost of the package is, if anything, is going down by basis points, like not a lot, but overall pretty satisfied with where we landed, and sort of recommend that everybody approve sticking with the insurer and the plans we're proposing.
Sounds great. We had to change, in my company, we had to change providers in order to stay flat, so go for it.
I agree, for what it's worth. Any questions for my Becky, or anybody want to push harder here? Okay, so let's vote. This is approving. So what are we approving? It's the health, and what else?
So it's health. Do you have a list, Chris? It's health, disability, life, vision, and dental, I think.
Yep. That's all.
Okay, all the above. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on. Public comment. Anybody from the public on? Seeing nobody, move on. Last thoughts. I don't have anything in particular.
Just that this meeting feels busy today. Next meeting is going to be even busier. It's a June meeting, so lots to sort of
Budget time.
thing like committees and like just redefining those, budget time, calendar, all kinds of stuff. So a full meeting.
Looking forward to it. Okay, good. So with that said, let's move into executive session. Chris, can you turn the recording off?
Josh, I think I actually made you the host. Can you turn it off in the corner? Is that possible?
Stop recording. Done. Stop.
And it still says live on YouTube. If you could just